Our speaker tonight is Dr. Scott Braley, who's been an avid mineral collector since his childhood. And he's focused on microminerals and photography for at least the past 15 years. Before he moved away from the DC area in 2016, he was a member of the Northern Virginia Mineral Club, the Micromineralogists of the National Capital Area, and he was also a past president of the Gem Lapidary and Mineral Society of Montgomery County. He's previously presented twice to us. In January of 2016, he presented the Herkimer Diamonds in New York. And that slideshow is presently on our website. And then in January of 2021, he presented on the Red Cloud Mines of New Mexico. But that was right before we started recording our talks. And after he retired from the Air Force, Scott completed his Ph.D. at Colorado State University with the mascot Cam the Ram for you trivia buffs. He's now a professor of radiation protection at Northern New Mexico College. He's got degrees in architecture, civil engineering, nuclear engineering, and radiation protection. Scott has spent considerable time collecting specimens on field trips, especially micro-localities across central and northern New Mexico. And tonight he will share with us his recent micro and not so micro collecting in New Mexico. So I'm very honored to welcome back and to introduce Scott Braley.
Hi, all. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. So I'm going to talk a little bit lightly. If you're curious about some of these locations, I can go a little bit deeper, but I was trying to, like I say, keep it a little bit light. I have gobs of pictures. I could almost do a whole talk with just the flower pictures that I just randomly grabbed with my cell phone, but cactus flowers just amaze me. They always look fake. But they're not. So we already talked about my timeline. I did start collecting as a child, and I know I wrote my own little bio blurb. But I wasn't doing it for a long time until I actually, around 2001, started collecting again and kind of backdoored into it. I was teaching doctors about radiation safety, and if any of you have ever taught doctors anything, they get bored really easily. So I was looking for props like radioactive rocks, which led me into fluorescence, which led me and my office mate into going out to New Jersey and Sterling Hill, and so it just went from there. And then I fairly quickly started focusing on micros. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about 6 localities. You could actually redefine this as maybe 15 or 20 localities, depending on how you define localities, but some different places around New Mexico. A couple of them are pretty familiar. I think Hansenberg and some of the mines there are really well known. Some of them a little bit less, and some of them are just pure microsites. And then I threw a few more slides in for another locality if we have time. We'll just see how it goes. I'm going to start with Hansenberg. Hansenberg is about 35-ish miles east of Socorro. If you've been out to New Mexico to see the museum or do some digging, Hansenberg is amazing. It's famous for its fluorite. It's famous for being the type locality for linerite and a handful of other minerals. But depending on how you count things out, there's dozens of mines and prospects back there. Some of the more well-known ones are the Royal Flush, the Desert Rose, the Mextex, and they're all spread out along this mountain. It's not quite a range. It's basically 2 mountains that are kind of linear, and it's this whole thing is just one big fault. that kind of thrust up. I already see a question. Is there a question from Stan? Maybe not.
Nope.
Nope, your hand's up.
Sorry.
No worries. Um, I do Zoom lectures all the time, so I watch for the hands. Um, so these are some of the most well-knowns, and they're famous for macro specimens, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. So this district's really well known. Copper secondaries, just kind of my shorthand for the copper oxidation minerals and things like that, carbonates and things. The whole thing, if you've ever dug here, is this incredibly hard stone. It's basically the second hardest that I've ever had to deal with after Herkimer. It's this limestone that got bedded in, and then quartz percolated through it, along with a lot of other minerals. At last check on Mindat the other day, there's 88 known minerals from this locality. Um, Most of this area is under claim, but there's a lot of small outcrops and things that are you can just go and scratch around. And there's interesting stuff to find, especially if you're into micros. This is the entrance to one of the tunnels of the Blanchard, the Sunshine number 3. The Bureau of Land Management came through and reclaimed. They didn't cut off access to the mines, but they reclaimed everything and made sure all the entrances were secured uh, with this sort of a grate and a welded portal. Fluorite is the most well known from Hansenberg. Uh, Here I've got some different micro pictures of some fluorites. The desert rose in particular, all the mines to some extent, but the desert rose in particular, the fluorite is almost never just cubes. It's these complex combination forms, and you can see this guy on the upper right here is just a weird mishmash of different forms, kind of all jammed together. Out of the Sunshine number 2, you can see this fluorite on fluorite, which is pretty interesting. The fluorite mineralization occurred, I think, in 7 distinct generations. And there's some early fluorite, there's much later fluorite, there's differences in crystal form and color. And when you're an expert, not like me, but like Ray DeMark, you can say, oh yeah, that's 3rd generation fluorite and 4th generation. But here I don't know which number generation it is, but you can see that these hexoctahedrons formed, and they were kind of a pale lavender color. And then these clear octahedrons formed over them. And also in there, there's behind, not in focus, is a bunch of linerite, malachite, and then chalcopyrite. Chalcopyrite was kind of the source material for all the copper mineralization.
Look,
And it's almost entirely gone. There's very little actual chalcopyrite left. But because this got coated with the fluorite, it was preserved. So it's pretty neat seeing a little bit of the story of what's going on in some of these things. Not well known, jarosite. A lot of the jarosite up there is just coatings, kind of greenish, yellow, brown coatings. But in a few places, you actually get some nice crystals out of uh, the material there. I've got these on the left here. I've got some on hematite from the Mextex. I've got some here in combination with some other minerals, hematite and quartz, uh, uh, brapentite, spangalite, cyanotrichite, and little maybe garrotite or hematite balls. Just really interesting from the 3.5. The 3.5 is completely closed off. It's the one of all these mines that the Bureau of Land Management actually sealed. So unless somebody working the Blanchard tunnels in from underneath and re-accesses it. You can't get to the 3.5 anymore. Oh, there we go. A few more copper secondaries, spangalite with jarosite and quartz, brochantite, cyanotrichite, just all kinds of really interesting copper minerals occur up there. Very tiny. The fields of view on these is going to be on the order of a couple of millimeters. Uh, Another one people don't think about, native sulfur occurs inside some of the galena crystals, and it's very galena, of course, super common in these mines all through Hansenburg, big crystals up to a few inches. But here and there, there'll be a tiny, millimeter scale vug in the galena. There'll be quartz crystals, anglesite, cerussite, inside the galena crystal, and nice, very well formed native sulfur. Um, this one here on the bottom right, just really interesting piece. The crystal's not all that great, but I have no idea what that fuzz is. You can see, depending on how good your screen is, you can see that it's I'm blanking on the word, reticulated. That's not quite the word, but it's got a uh, like a beading pattern to it. And of course, I only have one, and it's super tiny, so I have really no way to get it tested to see if that's some weird hairy form of sulfur or what that might be. Just a couple other random shots I showed you at the beginning. I showed you the current portal into the sunshine number 3. This is the old one. Um, was just a sheet steel welded, and you had to climb in through this little hole. They wouldn't open the big door. Um, the This barite is not a micro. This copper stained barite crystal was about 2 inches long, but that, like I said, that rock is not friendly, and so I ended up leaving that one, but I took a picture. Just some random fluorite, just kind of raspberry shaped rounded crystals of fluorite. This is just like I just picked that up. I mean, not picked it up, I hacked it out, but uh, had just mined that. And this is my knee in the corner of the picture by a boulder that's just completely covered with linerite crystals. Um, Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And one day that we were going up there, we were actually driving through the clouds. It was kind of neat. Moving a little bit further east, Red Cloud Copper Mine. I've talked to you about this before. So I just wanted to share a little bit of some pictures that I hadn't put in the article or shared before. I've been up there, of course, a few times since talking to you and got some neat stuff, and thought I'd show you a few pictures. Vanadinite's kind of the prize mineral up there. There's a lot of nice stuff, but vanadinite is um, one of the most desirable. And this one was one that I found last summer, and it's on matramite. That's what the little spiky triangular things are. Another new identification is that this is not a beautiful specimen in and of itself, but this is matramite. And we got to looking a little more closely at these little clusters off to the side and realized that they weren't matramite, they're platinarite, which hadn't been previously known from the region. Somehow my slides have bullets where they didn't have bullets before, so that's why this is all broken up oddly. Um, so platinarite, new to the identification. I didn't update my slide label, but kind of fun to find something new in stuff you already had. Previously, I'd showed you some pictures of pseudomorphs. There are a bunch more. I came across a bunch more in the dumps there. No idea. This might have been smithsonite before the Criscola got in there. But there's just so many pseudomorphs. They're so different from each other, and it's just really interesting how the Criscola got in there and just cleanly replaced all this stuff, making pseudomorphs. Hemimorphite, not a lot of it there. There's not a lot of zinc there. But some of the hemimorphite, I'm moving screens around here. Some of the hemimorphite has some really interesting fractures. This is several crystals,
Oh,
all with a similar but not the same fracture pattern in it. And the fracture pattern doesn't line up with the crystal faces, doesn't line up with any of the expected cleavage planes or anything like that. But you can see a little bit in this crystal above, this crystal and this crystal, and then several others that I didn't take pictures of, all have these very similar Christmas tree looking patterns in them. I started a discussion, this is a ways back, on Mindat, and nobody had a good thought for what was going on there. It's kind of interesting. Right, there we go. Agardite is a popular mineral, especially out of the fluorite mine. The copper mine and the fluorite mine are two separate mines. Um, but this little guy I found, I don't know what these greenish crystals are. You can see that we've got some echo. If
Somebody has to mute themselves.
it's very extraterrestrial. Okay.
Richard, if you don't mind muting yourself as well, because this way we don't have to worry about the feedbacks.
Okay. All right. Happens all the time. But these little crystals, all of them appear to be like this one here in the right, where they've got that kind of angular, I don't want to say twinning, but it looks like twinning, um, to them. And you can see in this one picture here, you can see that they're all over and they all have that same sort of shape. So it's kind of interesting. I'm gonna have to sacrifice one and have it tested at some point. Moving down to the southwest, Sierra County, we're moving over to Paramount Canyon. I don't know if any of you've heard of Paramount Canyon before, but it's one of the two areas in the world where you can find red beryl. Several separate small localities there, but this canyon area. Anybody recognize this guy on the right? No? No one want to volunteer? That's Fred Parker. Yeah, that's him. Looking out over the canyon. And in this first picture on the bottom left, the canyon, we're looking at the edge of the canyon. We're not looking down into the canyon, but we're looking at the edge of the canyon. Just as an aside, this area had a forest fire 3 years ago now. Swept through, wildfire swept through, and it came back greener than ever. So kind of interesting that I went back after the fire expecting it to be just torched, and instead it was greener than I'd ever seen it. Red beryl is the thing there for a lot of collectors. Um, these are all 2 to 3 millimeters for the field of view, so these crystals are all in the 2 millimeter range. The only other place to find these is up in Utah, where they get much bigger. These are all tiny. These are perfectly standard size for the location, 2 to 3 millimeters. Few other minerals. What we've got here is a rhyolite, and so in the cavities, when the rhyolite cooled, it shrank and left behind some shrinkage cavities. And then the minerals came along as vapor deposition. So generally, they're very clean and very well formed in these tiny cavities. So on the left here, we have cryptomelane on hematite, and I call this one my little Christmas tree, my little black Christmas tree. Bixbyite forms very, very well-formed crystals, very nice. And they can get up to 5-6 millimeters, so that they almost reach the point that a normal person can appreciate them, instead of somebody that likes to look through microscopes. Rare earths like gasparite, the little yellow crystal here, um, Chernivite, a few other things form very sparsely. Hematite, super common. Bixbyite, very common. The other stuff, a little bit less common. Cassiterite, a whole bunch of different forms of cassiterite. Wood tin, fine needles, these reticulated crystals that look like rutile. Just lots and lots of different forms. Freestanding crystals like these ones on the tips of quartz crystals. Very nice. The mineral exploration in this area was for tin, and there was some mining of placer deposits of tin, but not a whole lot of actual hard rock mining. It's too sparse in the rhyolite to be worth pursuing. But there were a lot of little prospects out there. Really interesting combinations of pseudobrookite. That's the kind of host this glossy crystal mass, and then rutile of all things. It's specifically niobium rutile forms, and it's just these beautiful clusters and combination pieces. And here we have cassiterite and probably ilmenite. It might be hematite, but I think it's ilmenite alongside the pseudobrookite. A bit more. You can tell I like this one because I made 2 slides out of it.
Beautiful.
And it's just these piles of rutile crystals and then individual needles. Get some other combinations, hematite and cassiterite. There's a little bit of iridescence here and there, iridescent coatings, or just the maybe heat induced. But this never got super hot, so not sure. There's a tiny, tiny town, probably well under 100 residents, in the northern part of the state called Chile. And in the 1980s, Patrick Haynes found a zeolite locality in a road cut near Chile. And so that became known as, in the very literal minded way, the Chile road cut locality. And my friends and I got, like Fred Parker, who you know, got interested in that locality and started looking up the geology, and found that the formation for that basalt, the Lobato basalt, actually had several more outcrops to the west. And so we started chasing those, and we came up dry on a few of them. But one of these little mesas, little basalt outcrops, did in fact have a lot of the same zeolites, not exactly the same, but very similar suite. And so we started checking it out, and we got some good scores. So we called it Chile West because, again, we're super literal minded. It's a little bit steep. You can't see that so much in this first picture, but that's a horizontal picture. And that 45-degree slope of gravel is what you have to climb to get up to it. But once you're up there at the rock face, there's all these huge bugs that catch your eye. And unfortunately, those bugs are pretty much just weathered calcite crystals. There's really nothing interesting in them. And I looked at a lot of them. Instead, if you go a few feet above and a few feet below the layer that's caught your eye with these huge cavities, um, there's abundant zeolites, chabazite, levine, harmatome and phillipsite, thompsonite, clinoptilite, all in their calcium dominant versions. Um, and we get some just beautiful specimens. So this is levine with an overgrowth, that kind of milky coating. The levine itself is crystal clear. These are beautiful clear crystals if you find them plain. But these almost always have an overgrowth of aragonite. And so that forms this kind of coating on these. I actually have some pictures of broken crystals, and you can see these araganites growing straight out from the levine crystals. There's these manganese dendrites are pretty common up there. And so this is an example of these some manganese mineral forming dendrites. Uh, and we'll see a little bit more of that in a second. Lots of thompsonite, lots of crystal forms of thompsonite from these little rectangular slabs to these nice kind of sky blue. They're actually really pretty plain blue balls of thompsonite. And then the horror movie scary tentacle version of thompsonite, which is kind of fun. These look to me on the bottom right, they look like tornadoes coming down out of a storm cloud. That's what it makes me think of. Uh, and then, of course, in this one, you can see a little bit of the levine, a chabazite crystal. There's a little bit of a mica saponite up there. That's this sort of tan here in the middle. On the top right, we see more of that manganese, but it's three-dimensional. So this is another one that's on my list to actually get identified because we find these little, they almost look like slag, but of course there's no way up there where they're actually three-dimensional, and we think it's just some manganese mineral, but we ought to figure out which one. The harmatome and phillipsite, it's a series, and both are found up there. So I'm just guessing harmatome really in this picture. But it's nicely twinned, these Marburg twins, where we have these sort of house-like terminations, like the rooftop of a house. And then clinoptilite and more saponite, more levine. Lots going on. People tell me zeolites are kind of boring, and it's true they're not super colorful, but I think just the sheer variety is really interesting. Just outside of Socorro is a mine called the Merritt Mine. Um, you cannot go here. Um, it's part of the Socorro Peak Mining District, and it is definitely not publicly accessible. It's actually part of an explosives testing range, and they will not let you come out here, except one of the CEOs is a rock collector. He's retired now, but he's a rock collector. And he got the Albuquerque Club permission to come and scratch around the dumps. And so twice we've been able to get up there. Um, this whole district, the Socorro Peak Mining District, was primarily silver mines. And they played out fairly quickly. They were able to get 5 or 10 years of mining out of each of these until they played out the ore deposits. They're super colorful. We get this reddish iron oxide, probably hematite. We get barite, we get these green chlorargyrites, criscola. There's other stuff going on in there in some of the stuff, and they turn out just this amazing contrast of brilliant colors that you wouldn't think these color schemes would work, but they actually do pretty well. They look really nice. Willemite, very common up there. Aurichalcite. In these pictures, there's also hemimorphite, fluorite, things like that. One thing that's interesting to look at in these pictures, if you look closely, a lot of the willemite crystals have a chlorargite on the tip. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, by the way. So the tips, somehow there's just a tiny bit of a preference. It's not anything exclusive or anything. You can see they're all over. But there's a little bit of preference for these crystals to form on the tips, which I think is pretty interesting. Fluoride on hemimorphite, the field of view on that one is about 0.5 millimeter, maybe. Really tiny. And more hemimorphite. Again, not a lot of hemimorphite up there, just little bits here and there. Also, not a lot of fluorite. Other things we found up there include wolfenites. They're not super pretty. They're just little blocky crystals. Mimetite, things like that. Also, nobody knew this was up there, but these tiny, tiny jarosite crystals. The whole field of view here, this is a blown up crop, which is why it's fuzzy. The whole field of view is 0.2 of a millimeter. But you can make out these nice little hexagonal jarosite crystals. And then what I'm assuming is hematite. Kind of neat. Like I said, it's fun to find new things. Willemite, something else going on with this one down here and this little fuzzies. Not sure what that is. It's not organic. It was pretty, I know that everyone always says this. It was deep down in the rock. There's no way it could be organic. I'm pretty sure it's not organic, but I suppose it could be. But the willemite, aside from those, I'll go back, the kind of thick bundles also forms these really nice little sprays. And then we get the hematite and the silver minerals and quartz in there with them. Micromite is not generally an attractive mineral. It's usually just a gray, not gray, a greenish coating. But up on this mountain, it forms nice standalone crystals, and they're this kind of neat glossy black, at least here. Oh, I forgot to take the other stars out of this one. Floppy. Shouldn't have me back. Here we're talking about number 6. We're talking about the North Magdalena district. And I've got just a couple of photos from one locality there and then another. North Magdalena is a kind of an interesting district. The good odds that you've heard of the Kelly mine. This is a district to the north by just a few miles. And it has dozens of little mines and prospects. In the 1880s, they were looking for silver. They found very little. There was literally ounces of production, and I mean just a few ounces. By the 1920s, when the Kelly mine, people were just realizing just how big and productive the Kelly mine was for copper. They started looking here because they figured the formation with the Kelly mine had to be underneath this somewhere. No one has ever found it. So somewhere there's a discontinuity in that formation. So no significant production of copper. In the early 70s, there was all kinds of scouting here for barite. No significant production of barite. Later in the 70s, silver was big again and scouting for silver. no significant production of silver. Um, there was a little bit of production of lead and like something like 2 or 3 ounces of gold from the district. So this whole district drew interest in wave after wave and all these prospects, little tiny pits, a few actual mines and tunnels that never really produced much. Um, but the actual tonnages of ore that shipped from this whole district is on the order of 8 tons. And I mean, just nothing in terms of actual mining. But all these little pits and stuff left us some interesting things to look at. Sophia was the only mine in the district that actually produced silver ore. Um, about a ton of ore was shipped, and it amounted to just, like I said, single-digit ounces of silver. Um, but that zone of interest was very small. They depleted the whole thing. They tunneled out a little bit in several directions to try and find more. Nothing. So now it's a pit. The main piece of trash that keeps us from looking any further is the 1950s refrigerator that's blocking the hole. So it's just full of trash. But there's a few interesting things going on there. Of all things, there's apatite. It's carbonate-rich apatite. Um, and that's an uncommon mineral in the first place. And so to find it in a silver mine of all things is a little bit odd. And there's a few other things. If you go poking around, you'll find this hematite, and it's always these little bubbles, botryoidal hematite, very pretty. And for a long time, I guess I should go back. For a long time, the collectors that were collecting there thought that these apatites were actually fluorite, which would make more sense for the geology. But they're actually not. They're apatite, and that's what these are too. A little bit different form, smaller, a little more opaque. But these are also apatite. And then a little bit of what might be a silver mineral, might be mimetite. Nobody's tested this. We haven't found a lot of it, and I didn't want to trash the only one I had. So you'll notice that this mine looks exactly like the other one. This is the Bullfrog. Let me switch back. This was the Sophia. You can see it's just a little dirt pile. So Bullfrog, not really a mine. It was just a prospect. They dug 2 prospect pits about 15 feet apart. They're about 3 meters across, about 1.5 meters deep. Nobody knows anything about them. So first off, this is the Bullfrog number 2. Nobody has any idea where the Bullfrog number 1 is. No one knows who named it. This just started appearing in listings in the 80s at the Geological Survey. And so they think this was dug by one of the groups that was prospecting for silver in the late 60s, early 70s, or possibly one of the barite groups that was moving through. Um, it's a mystery. I mean, not a very exciting mystery. It's just a hole in the ground, but it's a mystery. Anyway, there's 2 pits. One is behind this dirt pile, the other is behind this dirt pile with a bush separating them. None of this is real big. And this is a pure microsite. You will not see anything big here. But it's really nice stuff. Willemite and hematite in this picture with a little bit of quartz and barite in the background. Um, quartz inclusions of descloazite and fornacite. This one's descloazite, but fornacite, little scepter quartzes here and there, barite, small fine crystals of barite. Fornacite is probably of all the things this site is known for, fornacite's probably the best. It's a really bright green. But there's other copper minerals. There's a little bit of rosacite. There's willemite. Vanadinite, it's hard to see from this angle, but this is a hexagonal crystal, a little bit distorted. Um, Mimetite, things like that. This is hemimorphite, and I said quartz, but I should have said willemite. I was going too fast. This is hemimorphite and willemite together in a spray with little bits of quartz around it. Weird hematite. Never seen anything like that before, but um, I probably need to get that tested too. Just I'm assuming it's hematite. Who knows? I thought it was bugs at first. I thought it was like bits of beetle shell or something like that, but nope, it's a mineral. More willemite, similar to the Merit. We're actually 60-ish miles away from the Merit, but we're getting very similar willemite there, that those fine sprays. Let's see, how am I doing for time? I'm doing good for time, right? So I'm going to do a bonus locality. You guys may or may not have heard of Nacimiento. It's famous for azurite and malachite balls, little spheres of azurite and malachite. And the copper came from this wood that rather than getting replaced by silica, quartz, it got replaced by chalcocite and dejurlite. Um, so this petrified wood is all this black copper sulfides. And then as those leached into the sandstone, uh, uh, other copper minerals formed like azurite and malachite. So this is the Nacimiento, fairly well known. I've got a whole nother talk I'm working on about microminerals there because nobody looks at those except a handful of people like with odd mentalities like me. Because everyone's looking for the cool petrified wood and azurite malachite and stuff. So I'm the formation here on the right is where so they dug out all this and we're following the formation to the right, which is east. Um, that's a big sandstone mesa. And about 2 miles away on the other side of that mesa is the Eureka mine, which is in some ways a little more visible. You can see all the copper staining of this sandstone. And what we're looking at all through this, all through that mesa and back down to the other side a couple miles away, is this conglomerate of cemented pebbles, sand, up to small cobbles and then a lot of that copper mineralization. On this piece, you can see on the left, that's the copper sulfides, the wood, and it's just leached into the conglomerate around it. Now, it's been a while, and of course, this is long distance, but that's Dave and Joan Wells. Some of you might remember them. Used to be in the DC area. And we went up there a couple weeks ago. So this is the view from the mine. Very pretty, very scenic. I have lots of scenic views if you want to look through scenic views after I'm done. You get up in the mountains and just it's gorgeous. I like New Mexico. So anyway, where there was any space in this conglomerate and just a little bit of shrinkage or a little bit of leaching of some kind, since there's acids involved and things like that. Super, super micro. We get some really interesting copper minerals, and the best is libethenite. And we get these beautiful, well-formed crystals. Many of them are just completely transparent. Unfortunately, I wish they were this big, but these are again super micro. Um, we get needles of libethenite, and we get some other copper mineralization going on as well. Like I say, the libethenite's the premier. We get pseudomalachite, we get not pseudo malachite, just malachite, chrysocolla, azurite, a little bit of gypsum, things like that. And so uh, all of this is really hard to see even with a loop. Um, you guys will like this, I think. I bought myself an e-bike, hoping that it would be like a mule, like I could ride it up with power and then just cruise down with 100 pounds of rocks. Didn't work out so well, but we were able to bring back more than usual, but it was not what I hoped for. Um, but anyway, so we get some nice combinations like this labethanite, malachite, azurite. I don't know how well this shows up on the other screens, but down in the centers of these. And then there's the chrysocolla coatings. Uh, just really fun stuff. That's it. Little tour around New Mexico for micros.
All right, so thank you, but we're not done yet. So you're talking nacimiento?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
A chunk of it there. Okay.
Wow.
That's the wood.
That's the wood. You can see there's really good wood right here.
Yep. Yep.
So I have two of these. Like I couldn't pass them up. I got them from this old grizzled guy that collects them from there.
It's very cool stuff. I've got some pictures of some site pictures of some of it embedded in the walls. Let me see. Oh, I've got some cool stuff. I'll show you. This is like almost preview, I guess, of a talk I'm going to be doing later, but things people don't know are there are the curly malachites. There's a really interesting celestine up there. It's all super micro, but um, let me get out of this here. I've slid and I accidentally got some from another site in there.
That's silver wire?
No, it's malachite.
Oh, cool.
It's curly malachite. The celestine gets really interesting. That's my alien piece. Even calcite with multiple generations of calcite, more celestine, manganite. That's a crop. We were trying to figure out what it was. We're about 90% sure that's labethanite, which isn't recorded from there. So these are all nacimiento and you know, just like I say, I think it's one of these places that's well known, but the micro stuff is kind of underappreciated. Here was underneath all that is wood, like your piece, except this was so not corroded, that's not the word I'm looking for, not etched either, but you know, the oxidized and turned into the other copper minerals. Here's some of the wood in the sandstone with just my hammer for scale. But they were pulling out logs of this stuff. That was the copper they were mining was this wood. So really interesting stuff. And then there's pyrite, little pyrite suns, another thing that's not super appreciated about the mine. There's a little bit of pyrite. There's gypsum up there. Lots of interesting stuff. So yeah, if you've got an eye for like thinking about the micros instead of the macros, there's a lot of neat stuff in that area.
That's amazing. First, I'd like to thank you. This was a fun little tour of things that you just generally don't see.
No.
And that's a whole other world. I'm a macro guy, as you can see behind me.
Sure.
You know, I've occasionally taken loop to some of these things, and it's amazing it's like the inner world.
Don't start. You'll have a hard time stopping.
The little inner world, especially the copper stuff. I mean, there's no end
Yeah,
to what you'll find in a copper.
right. And that's, I mean, and you can't really, as much as I do it anyway, you can't visually ID half this stuff. You're just guessing.
I can't guess in the macro.
Yeah.
Um, so again, I would like to thank you, Dr. Scott Braley, for your presentation tonight. I would open up the floor to questions. We're in good time, so if anyone has any questions for the fair doctor, please, Mr. Ken Rock.
Well, what a great presentation. Your photos are just absolutely gorgeous. I don't think I've ever seen so many fabulous photos of microminerals. It's hard not to get interested in microminerals after seeing your presentation. One question I have, you mentioned that something about vapor deposition for micros. Is that common for microminerals?
I wouldn't put it that way. It's one of the common modes, especially if you're in rhyolites. Rhyolites, you know, they're this, I'm not like a formal geologist. There's something in between basalt and like pumice, right? They're this kind of relatively light, and the hot gases flowing through them are what carry the minerals. If you ever have you ever been up to Utah for like the topaz and the red beryl and stuff up there? That's
Well,
all vapor deposited. Those big
really,
topaz crystals.
those red beryl crystals from the Wawa Mountains of southern
Yep.
Utah.
And the topaz and all that, that's all vapor deposition.
Wow.
I can't get over how hard the rhyolite is. I mean, I've tried to break that stuff. It is hard.
It depends on where you're at. Like this stuff at Paramount Canyon is pretty easy to work with. It's hard to fracture it. You know, it just you're keep putting your chisel in and it keeps just going deeper and deeper instead of like breaking. But up in Utah, yes, it was much harder. When I was digging up there, part of what I was doing was trying to find the soft spots to on the theory that that's where the minerals would be.
Hmm.
So. But yeah, vapor deposition gets you these nice, clean crystals. They're very nice. I have a million pictures of that stuff because I really like it.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to follow up on that with regard to vapor deposition. The silicon carbide is like next to diamond in terms of hardness, and it's generated. It's sold as moissanite.
Yeah.
But it's all vapor deposition, starting with a seed and then basically putting it in a nuker and a microwave and and feeding it in and it crystallizes and grows. Super hard. Is it a characteristic of vapor deposition minerals that it is super hard?
I don't think so. I mean, it's hematite crystals and cassiterite certainly not super hard. I think I guess when I say really clean crystals, what I'm really trying to say is that they're kind of pure. They seem to be well formed and I don't mean simple in the sense of not having complex chemistry, but just being not mixed with other things. Like in a pegmatite, you get a lot of intermixed minerals, and here they're all just, like the pseudobrookite or sorry, the rutile on pseudobrookite, for example. They formed in generations pretty clearly, but not mixed.
Thank you.
Scott, one thing I want to share is I swear I have the same little tool as you do.
Yeah.
Original.
I think there's only so many ways to make one. Jim's really nice, but
Okay. Question. The you showed willemite a lot. Is it fluorescent?
it is not.
Okay. All right.
But what we do get, I didn't show a picture of it, but where there's a lot of that willemite, there's also hydrozincite, and that is very
That's
fluorescent.
fluorescent. Okay.
And I've found little, just simple coatings. I've found balls of hydrozincite that are fluorescent, but not in the sense of like Franklin and so forth. I don't know what it is about that, but it's well, actually, you know what? I took a picture for Fred Parker of some Franklin crystalline willemite, and it didn't fluoresce. It was from Franklin, but it didn't fluoresce.
Hmm.
Let me.
It's
I'll
probably something within the Franklin or within the
Yeah,
willemite that causes it to fluoresce.
these are willemite,
Okay.
and they're from Frank. I forget if they were Franklin or Sterling Hill. I think Franklin, and then these were willemite, and they did not fluoresce. So something about them.
Being micros, they're super pure.
It might have
That
something to
may
do
be
with
the
that.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be the difference.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I see from Sarah in chat, she's asked how the curly malachite is formed. The crystal starts, imagine that this is like the way the crystal is growing, and it's kind of growing this way. And as conditions, just a tiny little change in the conditions might let that turn a little bit. And then it changes again and it turns a little bit. And, and it ends up being little spirals or curls of malachite. I think the only other ones of that I've seen, I'm sure it's not like wildly rare, but the only other ones I've seen have been from Germany of all places. Some micro locality in Germany had curly ones.
It's really cool.
Sadly, only micro.
Now
I'd
you're just
love to
making
do
it
this and here, look at my curly malachite, but it's not meant to be. I think
John Sanborn, you're on mute.
your mic isn't on, John.
Yeah.
Can you put it in chat? I agree with Sarah. Darn.
I got a quick question for you, Scott. What
Sure.
we can only see the top of your T-shirt and some words on it. What does the bottom say? I like it. Very good.
That's great.
I do have a question, Scott.
Sure.
You mentioned that you started exploring these minerals because you were teaching doctors with short attention spans. Were you able to convert any of them into mineral folks?
So probably not. I was just getting radioactive lumps so I could make the detector go. But it pulled me and my office mate really far into it. He's still an active fluorescent collector, and I drifted towards micros. But no, the doctors we weren't trying real hard to convert with just these lumps. We got Fiesta ware and we got Vaseline glass and a radium dial watch. We wanted props so the doctors would stay awake while we were talking to them. Yeah. John asked if when I collect I just use a loop. Yeah, I can't usually see what's going on, but I can see that something is there. And so I'll just let me find something. I will often take a picture just to see what's going on so I can blow it up. What's a good example of one? Oh, this is perfectly good. This isn't anything super exciting. It's just I was like, I can see that something is happening. I'm going to take a picture so that I can blow it up on a big screen and kind of see what's happening. I still don't know what's happening, but that's the kind of picture I'll routinely do to try and see something big.
Well, following up on that, Scott, when you see something that looks interesting, and you explore the timeline of what happened when and such, but your understanding and your vocabulary for identifying these things is stunning to those of us that don't speak that language. Do you go back and use like X-ray diffraction patterns or something to identify what these things are?
I am embarrassed to say I've never had a piece formally identified.
Huh.
We have a deal. The Albuquerque Club has a deal with New Mexico Tech that we can get it done cheap, and I still haven't done it. I actually have a little pile over here behind me. All that stuff is get that ID'd.
And so is that how you do it though, with an X-ray diffraction?
That's what New Mexico Tech has.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't know if you know the name Ray DeMarc, but he's like the king of New Mexico minerals. He's the one that discovered linerite. He's got minerals named after him. Pat Haynes, you may or may not know, he's got like 13 mineral discoveries. Fred Parker, David Wells, Joan Wells. I hate to say I just rely on other people if I can't figure it out, but you know, these are like top men. What's the Raiders of the Lost Ark? Who's studied top men? Yeah, no, I rely on other people and the context. I mean, I'm not going to be wildly far off. I might have the wrong end of a series or something, but I get pretty close. But I know, in all seriousness, I really do need to start, and part of my summer plan, that's why this stuff is laid out here, is to get some specimens prepped and then shipped off to Tech to get analyzed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
When you said some of the minerals were, calcium something or other, okay, that somebody's had to determine that that's what it
Yep.
is, right? And you're going by, this is what they normally get at this location, and this is what it looks like
So
from the expert. Okay.
in that specific case, at the road, so that was the location west of the road cut.
I don't remember.
Pat Haynes had all the zeolites tested from the road cut. Everything came up calcium dominant. And so my assumption is that at the farther down in the formation, it's also going to be the calcium dominant. But
That's a good
assume.
assumption. Don't assume too much, but it's a good assumption, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got a question I'd like to, not a question posed by me, but a question I would like to answer for Jim Hurd. He wanted to see my background a little closer up. So I've got the picture on my screen. Can you allow me to share, and we'll see if I can get that done. So,
Yes, you can share.
Like a
okay.
bunch of worms. Is that nice clear worms, right? I can see it now when you're talking and you're on full screen. I can see a good shot of it.
Yeah, I think
There you go.
Can you see it there?
Yeah, looks like Medusa's head.
And what is that?
It's opal. I call it opal bushes with Thompsonite flowers. Those are in quotes. So these are all little opal growths, and then these little not quite white, not quite yellow is Thompsonite, and it's from Big Cliff in the Clackamas County in Oregon. And Thompsonite had not been found there before. I haven't gotten it tested, but I've got I think 3 different pictures of the different bugs with the opal with the Thompsonite growing on it.
And this is a micro?
Yes, that's 4 millimeters field of view.
Okay.
So,
Those are cute. I like those. Okay.
okay, thanks, Jim, for asking.
Let me show you another one. This is from a different New Mexico locality. Opal, same idea as yours.
Oh,
Oh,
neat.
that's cute.
Opal grew over the pseudobrookite.
That's crazy.
Micros are fun. I know. I never really got into it big time, and I'm getting too old to get into it now.
They are lighter, a little easier to handle.
Oh yeah, they're a whole lot smaller than some of the stuff I've got. 200-pound chunk of copper and all that good kind of stuff, you know. But the micro copper crystals are pretty.
I would not
Yes.
have room to move in my house if I had anything other than micros. Other than a few pieces I've got that are larger. Because in my catalog, I have 17,000 micros. In 3 or 4 other collections that I have. Oh, come on, Dan, don't fall off your chair.
I've got 500. I've got 550 catalog. Now I probably have about 2,000 total.
And then there's another collection that I purchased from Barb and Alan Lundgren that has 7,000 in it. I just got 40 bankers boxes of stuff that I purchased that I'm working my way through from all over the world, mostly US, but there were some from other places. Well, the ones in the egg cartons, let's put it that way, are from mostly US. The ones that are individually wrapped in little tiny pieces of paper, those are from all over the world. And I think it's like 10 baker's boxes full of Ziploc bags with these little tiny micros wrapped up in paper that I
Sounds
have
like fun.
to start going through. So, yeah, I have a huge collection, but and I've taken a lot of pictures, but I've got a lot to go through yet.
But they're tiny.
Yeah, but they're so beautiful. And I think somebody said earlier that I think it was Scott said he has to take the picture in order to really see what's going on in there. And that's very true. Even my microscope set at 30 times. Sometimes I can't really see everything that's going on. So I have to take it to my camera, which is got a 5x macro zoom lens on it. And then I can finally see what it is. And I have it on my monitor so that I can see what's in that bug.
During this comment section, I've been getting up and taking rocks out and being like, "Ooh, what's in here?" That with a loop. I'm not going to go to sleep tonight. Now I'm really.
One of us.
No,
One of us.
no.
Why is it that micros are so perfect?
I threw it in chat. A lot of times it's not that they're perfect, it's that the flaws don't get big enough to like distort the crystal or look like an inclusion or something like that. The macros probably started out looking as perfect when they were tiny, but then as they grew, the conditions changed and defects showed and things like that, right? So,
Wow.
what is it? So just following up on the chat, it's not that how did this flow? Do fluorescence and radiation occur together frequently? Yes, in the sense that uranium is frequently either the cause of a mineral bead fluorescent, like fluorescent agates and chalcedony and things like that, or the uranium mineral itself is fluorescent. But it's not because of the radioactivity, it's because of just the chemical properties of it. It's the chemistry, not the radioactivity. Radioactivity does some interesting things, though. Let's see. No, I don't have it in here. I've been working on getting all my pictures into my photos, but they're not there. A lot of stuff is still scattered. Oh, here's one. Let me share this real quick. This isn't a micro picture, but
Ooh.
so that's a bit of quartz. It's two different bits of quartz that got burned by the radiation. So there had been a uraninite crystal somewhere right in the vicinity, and it burned the quartz. So I don't think I have any other. No. So anyway, yeah.
Scott, before my computer dies, I just wanted to thank you. You've been a wonderful speaker, and we'd love to have you back. So
Sure. Happy to do it.
great job.
Thank you.
And
as
I have
well.
another question, okay?
Okay.
The one that had the pine tree thing in the middle of it, whatever the
Yeah,
crystal
yeah.
was, I don't remember what it was, what mineral it was. But that wasn't a void, like a pocket within the crystal?
Yeah. No,
Is it
no.
really on the surface?
It's
It's a
just sitting
surface
on the
imperfection.
surface. I'm looking for that picture.
I don't remember. Well, they
I guess I could
hemimorphites, were they?
No, that was cryptomeline. The little black one.
No, they were clear with
Oh, that's a different one.
like a pine tree form in the center of it. You
Hmm.
said it didn't follow any particular fracture pattern.
Oh, the hemimorphite. Yeah.
And they were hemimorphites. Okay.
Yep. I was tracking a different one because I actually called it a Christmas tree.
Yeah, I remember that you mentioned Christmas tree on one. It was black or black
Yeah.
color.
Let me find that couple of pictures. So this is the full picture.
Okay.
And you can see it's all the way through.
That's a fracture
Sorry,
within the
it's
crystal.
not all the way through. If you look at the thickness of this
Yeah.
and the thickness of this, it doesn't match.
Crystal.
At first, I thought it was a surface marking and that just something had left like an imprint or something. You can see that this isn't a reflection. This is another
crystal.
crystal with a similar,
That's the, yeah.
this is a different angle of that other one.
It almost looks like a void within the crystal. Like the Herkimer pockets with the
Yeah.
bubbles that float, and they're actually a quartz crystal shaped pocket with a floating
Yeah.
bubble in it or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's getting into something else. But yeah, that's the only reason I don't think so, the only reason I don't think it's a void is because these discontinuities in the marks. I think if it was a void, it would have continuous markings. But that's an interesting thought, that of the possibility of a void, or maybe a void that got filled in.
Well, that little rhombohedral one up there toward the tip looks more like,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, looks like a void. I kept trying to see a void in there, and you kept saying, no, it's a fracture pattern within. No, okay, now I see. Yeah,
So,
yeah. It shows there. It's not a void.
yeah.
It almost looks like an inclusion, but it's a fracture inclusion.
Yeah.
Neat. Like I said, micros are fun.
They are.
Micros are fun. I'm not doing the photos though.
I'll make two little comments or pitches. One is, as Diane noted, as long as I'm, free, if you come out, I'll show you around, take you to a few places, whatever you like. Come up to northern New Mexico or central New Mexico. I'll take you out micro hunting. The other one is I'll make a pitch for is the New Mexico Mineral Symposium. Every year, it's really, really startlingly high quality. A lot of good talks, a lot of really fascinating minerals. We're going to have a micro meeting the day before, just a micro gathering with a few talks and mineral swaps and show off your finds and things like that. It's really good. And come on out. It's in November. I forget the exact date, but you can look it up. Google is your friend.
November. Okay.
Yeah.
November in New Mexico. That sounds like fun.
Oh, it's actually
Is
not
that
too
before
bad.
the snow hits or?
It's before the snow hits. Yeah,
The snow
exactly.
hits. Okay.
And they always schedule either a tour of an interesting place on the Thursday before the symposium, or they schedule a dig. So there's opportunities to get out and hear about they get out to some places that are completely closed, that not necessarily collect, but to at least tour, and some interesting history and things like that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
All right, we are hitting up around to the 9 o'clock hour.
Okay, one last thing.
You got it, Jeff.
Yep. For anyone who's interested in exploring the fascinating world of microminerals, further, I have put information about the micromineralogists of the National Capital Area in the chat. Website is dcmicrominerals.org.
Northwest Micromineral Study Group meeting on Saturday from 9 until 4, and we have huge freebie tables. So if anybody's interested, is going to be out our direction on Oregon. It's up in Vancouver, Washington. Meeting is.
Sounds fun.
So Tara asks in the chat that where do you get microscopes? I bought mine from their MNCA club member.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you,
great.
everybody. Thanks, Scott.
Very
Thanks for
nice.
having me.
Everyone.
Fun. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.